Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's incredible episode. The title of today's episode is Moving Beyond Planetary Systems of Thought. And what is really meant by that title is that there will come a day, there will definitely come a time where our species, all its ideology will not just be, all its conceptualization will not just be inspired by what is provided for it on the surface of the planet. We will move beyond terrestrial dreams into extraterrestrial visions. What that means is we will wonder about the other senses of form, uh, you know, I felt this picture was fitting, and I wondered if there ever came a time where our species evolved from terrestrial limits, it would have to acknowledge a sort of galactic domain. That means all our philosophies, all our knowledge is in accordance with what is real to us on Earth. But when we wonder about what is beyond Earth, where does our attention go? And I have contemplated this to such depths that I have wondered whether the access to the higher dimensions is internal or external. In front of your eyes, you appear as an embodied entity. Behind your eyes, you appear as a witness of various bodies of a subjective stature. The vision follows that human beings will reach the edge of their knowledge in their own world. We will reach the edge of our dimensions of vision. And what that means is we will realize externality has an edge. You see, the cosmos, the manifest cosmos, doesn't have an edge. You can't see the edge of the sky. It goes on and on and on and on beyond your conceivable minds, beyond your mind's conceivable powers. It's endless. The sky has no limits, has no edge. However, externally, we have the challenge of confronting an infinite landscape. However, internally, where does the external experience end? Where is the edge of the external experience? And it comes to an inner position that attention without feet is standing in feet. So what I'm trying to say is there's one way of moving beyond. There isn't one way. There's an inner way out of this world, and there is an outer way out of this world. The outer way nobody can ignore. You cannot ignore that your physical body and your physical existence is changing throughout time, and it's adjusting to the world. Your physical body listens to the voice of nature. To be honest, it doesn't listen to you. You know, but your mind is the domain of your free will. Behind your eyes, there are freedoms that if only you find as a being, you will realize ability has nothing to do with what a person has. It has to do with how a person is being. I had a vision. This is a personal story I'm going to share. I remember I was in UK Birmingham in 2015 in the middle of my room, just walking towards my computer to just check something. And in the middle of that walk from the kitchen to my computer, I just stopped in the middle, and it's as if like there was a vision passing through me. Like for me, my imagination and my subtler, the data and the content found in my subtler planes of abstraction and imagination is one where they visit. What that means is like rather than chasing the butterfly for truth, you listen to your true nature and you sit still and silent among the lotus, among the flowers, and then the butterfly lands on your forehead. What that means is people are so preference oriented that they will eventually get locked down into a system of belief because their emotions are a slave to their thoughts, and if their thoughts aren't good, the person doesn't feel worthy. As if and it's not just in accordance to thoughts, it's in accordance to the experience of externality. So check this out. I have this view that children, all children, they are raised conditionally. They're raised in certain conditions. Now, this child requires these conditions to trust the world enough to exist in it. Do you see? This is why the concept of insecurity echoes in psychology very deeply when it's studied. That means the reason why you can have a great warrior. Like, I'll tell you something. There's Napoleon Bonaparte from French history, this French emperor. And Napoleon was this next level fearless dude who conquered, like, France, you know, who became an emperor. Like, his stories are awesome. But let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. On his deathbed, a great emperor, he was saying Josephine, Josephine. And what that means is Josephine was this lady who was Napoleon's lover, but was also this master at the art of deception. And so she had deceived, she had literally penetrated the mind of an emperor, to a point where such a great emperor who has lived for France in a great way at the end is just saying, Josephine, Josephine. Now, on some level, from Napoleon's eyes, that was a love story, but from Josephine's eyes, that was the greatest deception pulled off. So even great people their attention can be stuck on the unnecessary. And that is the whole point. When you go see all these religious traditions and cultures and metaphysical, subcategories of religions and whatnot, you know what you see? You see people trying to avoid the unnecessary, as if somebody's told them this is bad, don't do it, and then they're trying to be good all the time. Not realizing in the process of living for one idea, you sacrifice all the other ideas you could have seen. By just being in one way, you have denied yourself the other ways. And this doesn't mean that you have to just purely be a solid entity, an objective-oriented creature. And it doesn't mean you have to be a purely subjective-oriented creature. I have seen certain people, like there was this, I remember seeing, I was walking downtown Toronto, and I saw these people, they call them Jehovah's Witnesses or something. They're giving pamphlets or whatever, on the side of the street. And I talked to him and I asked the guy, how do you know that you know? How are you sure about your certainty? And I realized this is why an element of faith is required to hold a belief in a changing world. So this is what I noticed that's very unique. When you go speak to a person in a secular society about deep concepts, they're like, yo man, I don't believe that, don't tell me. When you go speak to a religious person about deep concepts, they're like, I don't want to know what God is doing, what God's will is. No man can fathom God. I don't want to know. And so the world has locked itself out through ideology. And it's a sad sight. It's a sad sight for 2019 because it means we have not evolved the technology of language, that we are stuck in a language simulation that we cannot step out of. And because our lives are so dependent on communication being the central value, see, a human being doesn't just need food, shelter, and water and sleep. A human being needs purpose, and that purpose comes when the effort, the energetic expression of that being through the day has a direction to go towards, and that direction brings something with it. So, on some level, every thought, belief, everything, every idea ever in humanity's mind, our species' vision, every idea, it is a planetary system of thought, because the creature interpreting the concept, the creature oh man, the creature I'm laughing, guys, because I came to say creature and I said creature. The creature on this planet is bound to the boxes of its thought. It's bound to its creation. You see, and I found out how hilarious that God has created. Imagine from a religious context. Now the ideas come up. Like, imagine from a religious context, it's as if God is looking at its creation, and God's creation is looking at its own creation. You know, for example, we see when the son of a family disservices or disgraces or dishonors the family, it's as if the father is looking, you know, the father is looking at the son with disgrace, you know, this as if, you know, with a sense of kind of pity, and it's the same way that it's as if God looks at that father with a sense of pity. You see, and what I'm trying to tell you is that because we create something, in order to be its creator, we have to be responsible for it, and therefore our attention remains there. You know, it's out of a strange sort of compassion that the world is blind. So I want us to imagine, literally, let's say, I don't know, when will it happen? Let's say in 702 years, the species human beings are part of an association of galactic beings. Let's just say. Let's just playfully imagine that. I want to now imagine, like, you see how the picture I've used for the wallpaper here? Imagine those ships are going to a sort of galactic United Nations, United Planets, you know, something like that. I want to say that what happens is, just like life, you have to respect the new reality and you have to authorize its existence, or you will not understand it. Many times life has given me opportunities, and instead of me taking life's hand, I have slapped life's hand away out of my arrogance that the past demanded more and the future was not giving me. We find ourselves present in a cosmos that is beyond our beliefs. There is so much in existence that transcends our belief, that all our human knowledge right now is 0.00, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% of the totality of what is here. We are a dust in a mote of dust in a light beam, acting as if it understands how the light is beaming. There are limitations, of course. There are days where the human being will look down on themselves. There will be days where the person will look up to themselves. You know, there will be moments that life will call you and you will listen. There will be moments that life will call you and you will not listen. There will be moments where you will feel certain, and in that moment of certainty, realizing the uncertainty projected to others. And there will be moments where you will feel uncertain, but you will see your world knows something that you don't. And so that's the incredible journey of life. It is much more open than we think. Our minds have been closed to beliefs that limit us to certain patterns and programs of cultural and social behavior due to the need for a sort of economical survival. We are drowning in a program that never cared for us. And that is the sad part of humanity. That is the sad part. The only sad, the issue with evil is like, no, an evil action is not, like, let's say somebody does something evil. That evil action, I don't choose its evil sense of evil based on a religious context. I choose it to an inefficiency. As if, why does the mistake need to be there when the clarity could have? And that's the thing, because it broke my heart. It broke my heart when I saw all what my ancestors lived for has come to be the chaos of another world, a world that is technologically choking itself out of its natural way of existence. Not only is the sober state of mind under attack, but it's like we don't realize it took us billions of years to attain a sort of sobriety, to find a state where there was enough balance for the world to have meaning. For me, we seem to fail to see that we are evolving. This biology, your body is changing. Your cells change. Some say they change every 2 weeks. The cells of the brain maybe change after years or something. But like they say, your cells change. That means literally your next birthday, when you're blowing that candle, you have a new body, new physically existing body. New cells have become to be. You see? And similarly, your ideological constitution can change. And this is why certain scholars, and not just scholars and philosophers, but also mystics, the mystics had a good control of the inner reality. As if mysticism, those were the teachers of what occurred behind your eyes. But what occurred in front of your eyes, that was for the elegance of the external teacher who even had the audacity to take the position of knowledge. You see, on some level, I am at a love and hate relationship with the educational system. I love it because of how far it has pushed itself, but I hate it because of how far it hasn't pushed itself. So this is what I'm requesting, and in some indirect way from every listener, every human being. First idea, observe your ideas. Second idea, act in an honest moment always. The karmic result is better. I'm telling you, if you're in a moment where you don't know what is good or bad, be honest to your nature, but do not be honest to your nature justified to a story. Trust me, it's like language is moving in people's minds. When I walk in the street, I notice, oh my God, it's not that these people walking on the street, their heart is beating. Blood is moving through their veins. There's a skeleton in their body moving. There's a sort of brain there, organs and sophisticated anatomical, medical, biological structure. But there is also a way that intelligence self-centers itself. We are constantly centering ourselves with the ideas that are real to us. And so in the Rig Vedas, this ancient Vedic text, there is a sentence that when I heard it, as if one eye was fascinated, with a tear of fascination came down from one eye, and from the other eye a tear of chaos came. There have been things I've seen in this life I could have done nothing. And let me tell you, it's as if, nobody, I am saying this, what many people may disagree, but I feel no human being has a problem with their transition out of this world. Let me tell you why. Because we do it every night. We die every night. And we are born again in the morning. And we walk the day in various moments, being a traveler with a new energetic approach to the world. And so the world goes on. Various forms appear and disappear. You see, what becomes love and truth and true value and meaning in life is what you are willing to allow to continue. And this is where evil and its opposite, where evil and good are kind of, this is where you draw the line. The line is whether the person has understood that the efficiency of the greatest efficiency of their civilization is their greatest efficient self, is the greatest efficiency of their self. You see, we all come and go. We are like temporary kind of, how can I tell you? It's as if the engine of civilization, we're throwing firewood in it, but this firewood is human beings, and their lives are being used up by how the world is animating itself. And these and human beings divide the world. It's divided between an inner way and an outer way. The inner way means that right now, as I'm speaking and saying these words, I'm sitting on my porch and I see a tree and I see my backyard. This backyard that I'm seeing, I may think this is it. This is the world. This is the only world that's here. This physical view is the only thing that's here. But what the physical phenomena means to me, to my subjective self, is totally different. So you will see, at first you think your mind and body are one moment. Then you realize they are separate. Then you suddenly find them to be one moment again. Then you realize, oh my God, it's not that there is nothing and everything. It's like we are oscillating between existential form and, in some sense, non-existential qualities, which are formless. That means a quality is like the next step after you have studied a form. And the thing about life is, I don't believe it's healthy to be thinking about the future when you have to live in a present moment. But if there are dangers, there must come readjustment. You see, there are some commanders who just follow orders. They're good at just following instructions. You know, these human beings, they become devout religious people. They're good at following instructions. They don't want to see the world. They want to see the point. It's as if the person doesn't care how he makes the money. He just wants the money. It's like the person doesn't care how they get to the truth. They just want the truth. And because they want the truth, they become followers. But in this world, it's kind of like meaningless to be a follower too much. You know, the reason is because you have your own eyes. There is a peacefulness that resides in every living being. No, people don't understand this because they're not told this, because in our educational system, they never bring up, they never discuss the subjective evolution. The subjective evolution took place and it sparked instantaneously with the objective separations awareness. So you see, it's as if there was a moment where the universe opened its eyes differently through the face of an evolutionary animal. Let us say, I'll tell you this. I've written this science fiction novel called The Messenger of Giants. I'm going to tell you a scene from there. And this book is set in the year 5025, and there's 9 parallel realities to both things. So this is occurring in one of the parallel realities, what I'm saying. So what happens is, long story short, the main character and his robotic childhood friend Buddy, you know, find themselves in this higher council called the Sky City Council. It's literally a city in the sky. And so, in this city in the sky, that's kind of like made of glass, strangely, outside when we look at it, but when you go inside, it's an actual building. And so the thing is, in this sky city, it's kind of like I've made a sort of galactic galactic sector of the UN, United Nations. Like it's one of those things where, the way I imagined it in that universe, that was the Sky City Council, where it was as if all the important people in all the parallel dimensions had gathered in that one location. You know. Now, what happens is when the main character goes in and sees some strange characters. One of these characters is a cool character I've made called Sergeant Fino, like Fino, right? And Sergeant Fino, Sergeant Fino is a dolphin in a robotic suit, and it has a kind of water capsule. So it's a dolphin functioning in a robot suit that makes him behave like a human, right? And this dolphin, Captain Fino, is giving a speech there about the rights of animals and animal consciousness in accordance to modern reality, right? It's as if the dolphin can now speak through advanced technology. So in my story, in the sci-fi thing I've written, the dolphin is kind of speaking to the council and bringing into life views of the animal reality, how they perceive the human condition, right? In this story of mine, in the year 5025, I have given permission to all potential realities to exist. So there's something incredible. Honestly, I've been a bit behind in writing this, but fully, it's a big book. I think it's going to take me still a few years to truly complete it. But I may give segments out of chapters out of it, out to the public to see. But anyways, the whole idea, what I'm saying there was, it was a sort of situation where the consciousness of all realities which could potentially become conscious were activated. And the main character walks in the skies of the council, and as he sees the various characters, I'm not going to give away too much, I'm not going to tell you anymore, because there's something so unique in the backstory of this. But what I'm trying to say is, in that story, I had created a context where it was a sort of meeting of uh, all important points of a reality. You might not believe this, but human consciousness is being preserved by kingdoms. There are kingdoms that are fighting. This is behind in the invisible dimensional planes of the subconscious uh, factor of our intelligence that originates out of our genetical design. That means we look at DNA and we're like, huh, that's just DNA. That's just cells. But those are not cells, they are worlds. Worlds where behind them there is wars of them, kingdoms of them. It is not only man's mind that has an ego, the ego of man's mind has echoed far. I remember seeing this thing in the New Age community. I like it. It was this article written by someone, and I don't remember who it was written by, but it made me laugh. Like, in a good way, it made me laugh, like, really hard. And the guy was saying that when Nagasaki, the nuclear bomb, was thrown in Japan, on Japan, it's as if suddenly all the extraterrestrial galactic kind of attention outside of our kind of atmosphere, suddenly they noticed the huge bang, and suddenly the human being, it's as if its greatest tragedy was like this loud boom that kind of brought forth many other galactic extraterrestrial views. Of course, I'm saying New Age community, right? So those people can are giving themselves permission to believe anything, but in doing so also get access to their perspectives. But it's just a story, okay? Sometimes stories can be pushed too far to a point that they define people's lives. That's kind of like when religion gets mixed with politics. This is my personal view. It's neither politics and neither religion. It's the chaos of confusion. Some people understand how to control people on this planet, and the way they do it is by confusing the person, because the confused person cannot find a way out. Kind of like saying, if they make you ask the wrong question, they don't have to worry about your answers. And this is in general in human nature. And when I say they, I am speaking about your world. When I live, it's as if I remember when I started giving these talks in 2014. I would go in this yard of this accommodation area in Birmingham where I was staying, and they had this bench, and it would be at night when they would be there, and I'm walking on this bench, walking on these benches that didn't have a back, like, and a backrest, and so these, I'm walking on these benches, and I'm giving this talk as if I'm in a lecture hall. happens next is that my mind, I felt I had no one listening. Nobody was listening to what I was saying. So there was a grass field in front of me, and my mind playfully began to imagine each straw of grass being an audience member. Suddenly, I realized every talk I have given, everything I have said, everything I have done has been seen by the world. You see, this is where guilt comes in, but an existential guilt. You see, it has to do with stories. I find a free mind, like that moment where that kid in the Matrix looked at Neo and was like, "You can bet the spoon" or something, you know. And Neo was like, "I can't," and the kid's like, "Free your mind, man," you know. And so in that moment, what the notion was that a free mind could be said to be a mind that no longer is chained by definitions into existing in certain ways. You find the freedom of believe it or not, strangely beautiful neutral moment. That means you can sit in a moment and rather than hide in some belief or quickly have a definition or quickly have a purpose of fitting into some program, just be yourself. Realize you have entered this world to look through your eyes. And your eyes, there is a weight. There's a responsibility you have to your own eyes. There's a responsibility you have to your own intelligence. That you must roar when it's being limited. You must roar. Because regardless of any ideology, let me tell you the issue with political systems. Let me tell you the issue this civilization has. It is very simple. So the political system cannot account for every freedom, need, and right of every person, but can provide a general resource. But that means the political system, the citizens are evolving, their consciousness is evolving, then the consciousness of the type of citizenry the political system acknowledges. This is why you cannot govern nature, because it's already under its own governance, under natural laws, are the laws that we must respect first. Our society must really look at nature and then make walls. It is easy to divide. It is not easy to unite. It is easy to break something. You know, a building, it takes years. Cathedrals back in the day, the magnificent cathedrals and architecture, kind of we find in the Christian tradition. For me, this is something unique. Even though I was raised in the eastern part of the world, but I hold Christianity in a unique way, in a high regard, not because of its narrative and its collective ethos, but I'm saying it because religions were the dawn of architecture and were the dawn of art because they made the world important in the eyes of the being. Do you see the difference? There was the value of something being important, and when the human being realized its free will, it was chaotic. The secular society must clap for itself, because it took a while to stop getting overwhelmed from the data of the world. It was like this. It's like somebody explained this. I believe you can hear more about this in the lectures of Steven Pinker, a man who I feel is painted in the wrong light in our modern world. Anyway, Steven Pinker talks about language. He's a professor of language. He's talking about its kind of development, you know. We human beings have not been going through only an objective process of evolution, but a sort of subjective survival of finding the value of what is to come next. The only reason me and you are different from objects, like legit, like right now, this chair I'm seeing in front of me, how me and you are different is because we are engaged in a field of sophisticated movement. And these sophisticated movements, it's as if, do not deny your eyes the freedom that your world has made for you. Because my issue is in some sense, I looked at it and I realized I don't have the eyes of people. And I became super humble. That means it became okay for me to be a fool. Because I realized nobody can be certain when it's just a bunch of viewpoints looking at the same thing. Each viewpoint holds a certain value. We cannot measure each other's eyes, compare each other's eyes on a scale, you know? So I noticed that when the moment of being became important, creativity occurred because in importance and value, you live with permission, with subconscious permission, you know? When you're in an environment where you're cared for and loved and people in some sense are happy for your existence in the moment, do you see? Then you as a being have various dimensions of your intelligence accessible. Because we govern ourselves through a personality, we are having a kind of relationship with the world and through a story dialogue dynamic behind our eyes. You know, thinking, believe it or not, when you really get down to it, it's sentences, subjective symbolism moving in attention. Thinking is the movement of language, or how attention is like a camera where language is moving in front of, where chaos and order are moving in front of this camera, this vision. As the species moves beyond planetary systems of thoughts and beliefs, we will in some sense look for a new mode of reality, and we will identify with more dynamic inner technologies. Belief systems are a sort of static dynamic, static inner technology. What I mean by that is just like we're just playing with images behind our eyes and we think that's true. But what is behind our eyes is a generation in a moment. It's a momentary phenomenon. So to segment the moment, that is a level of questioning that, how can I tell you? It's like, how can your sight be separate from what you are? You see, thought and matter are simultaneous. In ancient traditions, they call this Vedic tradition. They call this Purusha and Prakriti, the simultaneity of consciousness and matter, rather than there being the chicken first or the egg. It is in some sense the simultaneous existence of both, as if they are existent in a duality, so the duality was born from nothing. So this oscillation between individual conscious living and collective conscious living It has to do all with the wonder of the species to recalibrate itself to what it doesn't know, rather than what it just feels it knows. When we are trying to be certain of something, there's a danger to that because we are filtering reality in accordance to a system. That means the pattern of thought has an influence on the thoughts you're trying to get. You know, the approach, the way you move, is it activates your mind in different ways. Like something unique the person can appreciate about human life is that every moment you're getting a display of how your attention is present. So from the moment I wake up, I pretty much am fascinated by how my mind is moving, how my attention is moving, what thoughts arise, what thoughts don't arise, how the emptiness, how content I am on that day with the emptiness of the day, how, in some sense, uh, sensitive I am to the nature of existential reality. There have been days where external reality has been rough, so I've just become literally my, how can I tell you, when external conditions, when I like, when it's a rough day, I choose to have, I shut down the inner reality. I just do the actions. When the physical reality is is louder than, let's say, objective reality is louder than subjective reality throughout the day, I don't care for the subjective reality that much. I just assume that the world is blind to who I am, and it can play its games as much as it wants. So on some level, when it comes to objective action, just like how Bruce Lee said, "Be like water, my friend." What he meant was that water can take the shape of a cup, can take the shape of a pot, can take the shape of anything. What that means is, in that moment, your consciousness doesn't identify itself as an idea. It identifies itself as a moment of experience and experientially navigates throughout the day. Okay? Now, this, you are always, of course, experientially navigating through the day, except for like in deep sleep or something, right? But when this experiential navigation is, it's kind of like, it's like us. It's like every moment is sort of like every problem in this world is like a sword fight. Like imagine the old school Japanese samurai sword fight, or imagine like a medieval kind of like sword fight or whatever, right? Or a gladiator kind of sword fight. Like the reason I'm saying this is because you have to wait for the world to move first and then respond, or you move first and the world responds to you. And when you suddenly stop caring for the world, this can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone. It's kind of like that story where the guy had one tiny problem, and that one tiny problem suddenly made the person think that the whole world is a problem. You know, and so there's the story of these grandkids who put us like a stinky piece of cheese on the mustache of their grandfather who's sleeping, and the grandfather wakes up and he's like, "Whoa, what's that smell?" He's like, "This smells ridiculous." And then the grandfather looks at the kids, and the kids are acting so disciplined. And the grandfather looks at the kids, and he's like, "Okay, this makes no sense. You know, kids are acting disciplined, and it's like something smells like cheese. You know, everywhere smells like, stinks." And so the guy goes to another room, goes to the kitchen, he sees it stinks, goes to, I don't know, the bedroom, sees it stinks, and eventually runs outside the house and suddenly feels he has gotten away from the problem and sees, oh no, it's the world stinks, and he thinks the world stinks. And because of one tiny issue in the moment, one tiny discomfort echoing into the true value system of the being, subjectively, the person has to feels like everything has to change or everything suddenly is meaningless. It's kind of like when it's like everybody who ever has a complaint on this life, you feel you have a problem in this life or a complaint. Let me tell you why we can't complain. Because none of us know. None of us know. None of us know who to blame. The macrocosmic structure is too vast to point fingers. The truth. I remember hearing Terence McKenna say that the poets have failed us. And I want to say it's not that the poets have failed humanity. What that means is like the poets, the artists, these are the storytellers of the world. It's as if like Terence McKenna was saying it, the way the world is telling itself as a story is a failure because the story hasn't come in you, a new story hasn't risen. And I wondered about this new story, and I realized it has to do with an evolutionary return to nature. For the first time, the children of Gaia return, even though they have been away for many years. So slowly and gracefully, we return to our home, which is our natural state of being, a state of Satchit Ananda, which means conscious existence is bliss. The fact that consciousness and existence are simultaneously being the moment is fascinating, and that's why that bliss arises. Fascination with the drop and falling into the ocean, as Rumi says. The state of consciousness that has lived an individual life of fear and solitude and desire and sadness and happiness and all these various things, only to realize they were just they were just passing moments in an eternal abode. What if Earth is a projection in heaven? What if Earth is a heavenly video game? So attention evolves to a point where the free will, through its field of freedom, can just draw. I think when life becomes meaningless, when all what happens is like once you reach a sort of nihilistic perspective, like, oh my God, this is just stuff in space and none of that means anything, right? The secular society is like headed there, or is starting through that design of view, I find. So because there's this kind of emptiness, we have to find meaning in something. So the search for meaning either becomes the purpose of life, or life as it is occurring becomes the meaning. And the free will reaches, after acknowledging the chaos of emptiness, into the order of novelty. The order of novelty is where creative people are, in some sense, taken to the edge. Death is an illusion if we are not our thoughts. The greater story that will inspire our species has to do with a collective efficiency, and it has to excite people. I realize what is more exciting than what you know is what you don't know. And so the species, it's like it will put aside its inefficient violence and turbulence and navigate itself to just see what if 8 billion people could live well and efficiently. What if humanity could move beyond just a civilization entrapped by ideological constitutions? You see, language is incredible, but I don't believe it is the greatest technology. I believe nature has secrets that if our ordered, programmed, dualistically oriented minds were to kind of try to comprehend, they will suddenly feel they fall short. And this is why you go see in religious, like in religious traditions, for example, Islam, the word means submission. And it means submission of the idea of the individual's truth into the overall unknown presence of truth, which is in some strange way a freedom of the person from themselves, from how they were holding themselves. You see, there's something in Hinduism, you can say, or I will say, let me just trigger it, point the direction to yoga. In yoga, there's a type of yoga called bhakti yoga. And it has the Bhakti Yoga is kind of like there was this man named Sadhguru who explained it really well. It's kind of like the kid, instead of taking an intellectual approach, instead of taking a warrior's approach, instead of taking any other approach, the kid just looks at the world and is like, it's just it's like out of love. The person has the nature and intelligence of the world hold their hand. You see, divinity can be defined in various ways. It has to do with the reception of the individual. So what that means is, imagine your brain right now, it's an antenna. Thoughts you're getting are waves you're receiving. Okay? Now, the mind can, of course, impose any sort of subjective structure, you know? You listen to enough of these talks, you're going to see that I am not speaking in accordance to language only. I'm speaking in accordance as if behind my eyes I'm seeing something and I'm just defining it. I'm just finding words to say it. It's kind of like the world is evolving too fast, and because it's evolving too fast, it has made mistakes, so it's getting entrapped into a technological box. By the values of human beings leaving the natural world and going to the concrete, and like, see, there's phases, guys. It's as if like you don't, no conqueror has conquered uh, overnight. You know, what I mean by that is, once you are comfortable with physical reality and you see its simplicity and its complexity in one moment, then you move on to your subjective reality. And once you see its, in some sense, multidimensionality and singularity, that's the key point of the subjective realm. Pretty much you're dividing up stuff and then unifying them, dividing up stuff, unifying them, you know? You see the lovers in the story, they're together, then they're not. Then they're together and they're not. And this Ross and Rachel effect actually echoes in history. Oh man. I feel like I'm being called to read this quote. It's a quote from Attar. Attar. All right, guys, check it out. This quote is from Attar of Nishapur, this you know, Persian poet from long ago. He says, he was a mystic. He was a raw mystic, like next level mystic. You know, he says, "The home we seek is in eternity." I'm gonna read it once, and then I'm gonna kind of dive through it because it's like this. He's given a great puzzle here to be solved. The sort of next level existential Rubik's cube is in this quote. Anyways, he says, "The home we seek is in eternity. The truth we seek is like a shoreless sea, of which your paradise is but a drop. This ocean can be yours. Why should you stop, beguiled by dreams of evanescent dew? The secrets of the sun are yours, but you content yourself with motes trapped in its beams. Turn to what truly lives. Reject what seems. Which matters more, the body or the soul? Be whole. WHOLE. Be whole. Desire and journey to the whole. That means seek the completion of the max potential of your lifetime. Don't seek it only intellectually. Don't seek it just emotionally. Don't seek it in accordance to just a set of belief systems. Just live life as it comes to you. And this is where honor comes in. It's kind of like this is a kind of, how would I say it? The true definition of the masculine force is the confrontation of battle and the continuity. What that means is it's the force that ascribes itself an ability to respond, you know. What I'm trying to say here is you cultivate a sense of honor like the samurai, because the samurai had great honor for the moment was held in great value and high regard, you know. Anyways, I hope this talk has served you guys. Henry David Thoreau has this quote where he says, "It's not what you're looking at that matters, it's what you see." And so when you look at life, what do you see? Dear listener, what do you see? Do you see something that is overpowering you, overwhelming you? Or do you see something where there is a sort of permission granted for living? And this permission we're granted with living, it has to focus on ourselves. The issue with the person wanting to live for something in the future, I guess let me just conclude it like this. Rabindranath Tagore says, "I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy." If we choose to serve the future by paying attention to the present, I feel the lifetime will be joyous. Thanks for listening.